Welcome to this month's Small Shifts in Practice, filmed here at Adrian's Croft on the west coast of Scotland at 56.5 degrees north. This month I'm thinking about pause and integration. At first I wasn't quite sure how to film either of those, but the longer I sit with the idea, the more I begin to notice them everywhere. And perhaps that's the point. Sometimes we don't need to go looking for an idea. We simply need to pause long enough for it to reveal itself. At this time of year, the Croft is full of life. At this latitude, our growing season doesn't really begin until June. Yet by the middle of August, autumn's already beginning to make itself known. Everything seems to happen at once, and sometimes it can feel impossible to keep up. This, though, is one of my favourite times of the year. Not because everything is tidy, it certainly isn't, but because this is when I get to stop and ask, how might all this become part of the system? The Himalayan balsam becomes beer. The nettles provide seeds for us and fodder for the livestock. The mint is dried as a strewing herb. What once looked like weeds become useful resources. And the same happens with the blackcurrants. The berries become food, the stems become new plants, some of the leaves are dried for tea, and the rest are fed to the goats. Over the years, harvesting like this has become less of a chore and more of a ritual. When my hands are busy, my mind is free to wander. And some of my best design thinking happens here, sitting in the sunshine stripping fruit. It's rather like knitting, only the landscape is doing the knitting with me. Every morning, I walk the same path to check on my elderly parents. On the way down, I pull a few weeds, trim back an overhanging branch, or cut a wandering bramble. On the way back, I gather everything I've collected. The woody stems go to the goats, the green leaves to the chickens, and the best of it comes back to the kitchen. Small routines, but quietly integrated into everyday life. Elsewhere on the Croft, I'm asking different questions. Should temporary ideas become permanent ones? How might surplus materials find another purpose? Old barrels washed ashore become planters, pallets become retaining walls, milk bottles store warmth and water. One small idea connects with another until gradually a whole system begins to emerge. The same questions continue in the woodland and in the pastures. Not what should we build, but what already exists that could become something useful. I've realised that many of my most important design ideas haven't appeared while sitting at a desk. They've emerged quietly through moments like these, working with familiar tasks, allowing relationships to become visible. That gradual shift didn't just change how I designed the Croft. It gradually changed how I came to teach permaculture. Looking back over the years of teaching, I realised that the same patterns I was seeing in landscapes were also present in families, communities, and organisations. Relationships, boundaries, diversity, feedback, cycles. They weren't separate subjects, they were simply different expressions of the same patterns. That's why my permaculture design course evolved differently. Rather than treating ecological, social and economic design as separate conversations, I wanted learners to recognise how deeply connected they really are. Because once we begin to notice patterns, we start seeing them everywhere. Perhaps that's what pause is really for. Not stopping for the sake of stopping, but creating enough space for integration to happen. Until next month, may you find a few quiet moments to pause, to notice, and to discover relationships that you hadn't seen before.